Hello there, Homeschool Nolan here to help you navigate learning in the digital age. Not long ago, a friend of mine told me that when her teenage daughter was assigned to read a classic novel from her school, she asked her mom, "Why should I read a book written by a dead white male?" Now, as someone who went to school way back in the 80s, this question never occurred to me. But I suspect it's a question that a lot of young people are asking today. And although my own oldest child is still only 8 years old, I've already begun to wonder, how would I answer this question if one of my kids were to ask me that today? Upon pondering this question, I quickly realized that the right question to be asking though is this: why read anything at all? Why read any book, whether it was written today or hundreds of years ago, or whether it was written by a man or woman of any color? Well, the simple answer is that we read books by people who lived before us if they have something to teach us today. Times are always changing. Human beings continue to make progress, but human nature never changes. And the reason we read works of literature from the past is because great writers of any time period have a way of exploring themes which are eternal. Themes such as love, hate, jealousy, heroism, revenge. And they do so in a way that speaks to all generations. Take William Shakespeare, for example. He's probably the most famous example of a dead white male that many of us had to read in school. I still remember being first assigned to read Shakespeare's play Othello in the 8th grade. And while I didn't exactly dismiss him at the time as a dead white male, I do remember wondering why I had to read a play written 400 years ago in an archaic form of the English language. I do remember my English teacher teaching us that Shakespeare was a master of character development. And in Othello, we follow how the villainous Iago, driven by jealousy and some racial prejudice, manipulates the dark-skinned Othello into tragically killing his wife. The human experiences of love, hate, and jealousy are all powerfully dramatized, and like many of other Shakespeare's works, have inspired numerous modern adaptations. And there's, of course, Romeo and Juliet, which I read in high school. Just about everyone has heard of Romeo and Juliet, the story of how two star-crossed lovers caught between two families that hated each other. But the story of Romeo and Juliet is, of course, about more than just teenage love. It's also about love for family, friends, and how tribal love can sometimes tragically tear people apart. These are themes that have never ceased to be relevant. But perhaps the most famous phrase from all of Shakespeare is from Hamlet: to be or not to be. That is the question. Students today may ask, to read or not to read? I would contend that any author such as Shakespeare who can powerfully and dramatically write about the human condition is worthy to be read. But beyond literature, the writings of people who lived before us have also profoundly shaped the political institutions we live under today. And that alone is enough reason to read them. If you live in the United States, you're living in a country that would not exist as it is were it not for Abraham Lincoln and the principles he espoused in his famous Gettysburg Address when he explained why the United States was fighting a civil war to rid itself of slavery. But in order to understand Abraham Lincoln, you must turn to the writings that he read by the founding fathers, men such as Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. These men, in turn, when trying to form a new American republic, had turned to ancient Rome for inspiration and wisdom. All of these men were dead white males, but we don't read them because of their race or gender. We read them because they addressed eternal questions that we still ask today. And you don't have to agree with what they wrote to recognize the importance of what they wrote. For example, the two most famous dead white males in the field of economics were probably Adam Smith and Karl Marx. Adam Smith, of course, wrote The Wealth of Nations, which described how free markets, driven by self-interest, creates wealth under a capitalist system. It is perhaps the most influential book on economics of all time. And one of the men it influenced was Karl Marx, who of course wrote the Communist Manifesto. The ideas of both Adam Smith and Karl Marx are still hotly debated today. Almost everyone alive today lives under some form of capitalism or Marxism. And that's why Adam Smith and Karl Marx, whether you agree with them or not, are both examples of dead white males who still deserve to be read today. So to read or not to read? That is the question. I believe that depends on whether the person, dead or alive, male or female, has something to teach us. And if you happen to live in a Western country like the United States, then yes, a lot of your reading assignments in school will probably be from dead white males, because dead white males, for better or for worse, have had a disproportionate amount of influence on the world we live in today. However, if you're growing up in China, Middle East, or Africa, I'm guessing that the schools you attend assign books written by people of different colors and backgrounds. And looking back as an Asian American male myself, I think I probably would have enjoyed and benefited from reading more works by different people from different backgrounds. But one of the advantages I have now as a homeschooling parent is that I now have the opportunity to develop a curriculum and reading list that is more diverse for my own children. I hope this video today has been helpful as you decide what to read or not to read. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.